Greetings, Om Shanti, good evening. So, welcome to all of you who have taken out time Sunday evening to attend the refreshing Sunday evening talk. So this is the last Sunday for 2024 year coming here, which happens every Sunday. Now, the topics for these evening talks, these are mostly related to stress management, anger management, time management, transformations, conducted by various speakers all across the world. Now, today is the last Sunday of 2024, and we have done many plannings. I hope mostly all of you have done plannings in 2024, what to do and all. So, in today's talk, we will explore this transformation from 2024 to 2025. So, the topic, I hope all of you know how to put less efforts and get more results. So for this, I would like to invite Sister Zillian Sovers. She is a spiritual teacher, professional development trainer, and coach. She has delivered a wide range of courses, seminars for commercial and community organizations, as well as hundreds of classes related to law of attractions, healings, many emotional intelligence, many other retreats on behalf of Brahma Kumaris. And she is practicing Raj Yoga meditations past 40 years. She is from New Zealand and she has traveled and served in many countries. Currently, she is based out of Mount Abu. Over to you, sister. Thank you.
Thank you for that introduction. I just want to see if you can still see me if I'm here. Yes? Okay. I feel more comfortable on the floor. So I was asked to come up with a few titles for this. And one of the titles I came up with was like more results from less effort. And then when she chose that title, I was like, oh my God, that's a big promise, because everybody always wants, less effort and more results. And I really thought for the last week, what should I cover? Because, it's not quite 40 years, almost 40 years, but, there's always new things inspiring me, like always something that like, oh, that's giving me an edge, that's really helping me. But what I decided to share with you was something that actually I've been teaching in companies for over 20 years, and I found it personally really useful. And I found that people have found that it's useful. Now, normally I teach this content over 4 hours. So my challenge this evening is to really just give you the essence of it. So I'm going to a little bit like motor through it, but try to be as clear as possible. Loading. And also I'm going to be a little bit dominating the conversation, so I won't be asking for questions. But what I will do is try and get through the content, finish with a meditation. If we have time left, I will ask if there's any comments. Otherwise, it's kind of like I only have this time with you. We may never meet again. So this is something that, like I said, it's a little bit of a summary of some knowledge from this organization, which I've found really useful. So starting with, in a way, the purpose of life and of this organization, and it's for us to awaken and to help awaken others. And everything else is details, what we do for our jobs, what goes on here, like behind everything, the aim is to awaken. Now, what does that mean exactly? So this is the question that you always get asked when you come to one of our centers. Who are you? And you think that we would know it, after this many years. There's a lot of things that we confuse for who we are. That's why it's not a simple question, and that's why all the great saints and sadhus and seekers have always asked this question. Know yourself, or who am I? I'll ask you a question. So kind of the opposite of knowing who I am is knowing what I'm not, or getting stuck in what we're not. Another word for that is ego. Now, I'm just curious if you could give me a definition of what you think ego is. If you were trying to describe ego to someone, what comes to your mind? If I said, oh, I have a boss, he's got a huge ego, what would you think I'm describing? Someone with self-respect. So is that a good thing? Or respect? Thinks too highly. Being rigid? Overconfidence about himself? Proud of himself or herself? Proud, yes. So these are some of the indications that we can recognize someone has got ego, but ego can also come in the form of being shy. It's actually another face of the ego. So someone says, oh, no, I can't speak in front of a group, I'm too shy. And we think, oh, that's humble. But actually that can just be another form of the ego. So sometimes ego is this voice that tells you that you're better than everyone else, and we're always looking to compare. But if you compare yourself with others and fall short, this is also the voice of your ego. Less than, more than, comparing. So what we really want to understand is what exactly is this ego mechanism and how does it work? So a definition, of course, psychiatrists, psychologists, there's lots of different definitions, but this for me is quite a practical, useful one to work with. And it's that it's an attachment to a false belief or image of myself. Now that includes a lot of different things that we mistake or identify ourselves with. Now, the reason I've got this picture of a castle, because that's a really good analogy for the ego, that we start building it from very, very young. When the people around you tell you, you're a clever boy, you're a pretty girl, you come from this good family, this is, your nation, your religion, on and on and on, and we build it up. And it takes different forms. My toy is better than your toy. My car is better than your car. And as you become a mother, you might be proud of your cooking and your children, and on and on and on. I'm going to give you a big list of what it can attach itself to. It's essentially endless because it's looking for a sense of security, to know who I am. And because the whole world, the culture of the planet is externalized, we seek to build our image through attaching to these things. So it's deriving your sense of who you are from something that you actually are not. And those bricks go on and on and on, and we like to show other people that we've made something of ourselves. We drop into conversations when we introduce people. We like to let them know who we are, and through the way that we dress, many, many different ways we seek to show ourselves. So we build this ego with many external factors, and I made this list recently, and in the workshop that we did this week, we actually went through them, and good idea. Taking a photo is a good idea, because this is a really good checklist to see how many of these things do I get my sense of who I am from. Now, it might just be a little bit from these, a little bit from that, but which kind of phone you own, and what's your personal style, and what do you know, and what do you know how to do, and who do you know, and what sort of privileges is your upbringing given you, and you take them for granted. But if they're not there, or if they're threatened in some way, then you begin to notice that actually they're a very important part of who you think you are. So even on a so-called spiritual path, sometimes we can make the mistake of letting go of some of the more obviously worldly ego, and then we start to develop ego about how many years I've been on this spiritual path, and how close I am to the seniors in this group, and how many students come to my center. I mean, I've been through it all. That competitiveness that, that center's doing better than my center. And it's no different from my company's making more profit than your company. The ego will just feed off anything and everything. It's like a virus that's kind of inside us, and it's feeding off, hijacking our minds. And yeah, people, your favorites, who you like, who you politically support, your insights into things, the way that, your political views. So we have both external attachments, and they can be as kind of basic as comforts and the senses. I'm attached to my food, overly attached to my food because I identify with my body. So if I'm enjoying that taste of food, I mistake it for happiness. And that's, again, over-identification with the physical. Or it can be more things like how popular I am, how I'm included, who I know, what I know, etc. My lifestyle, my caste, my religion, my partner. Yes, so this is, it does, because what we're doing is we're unconsciously identifying our pleasure with something external. We had a big discussion just now about this, about addiction to social media and however, and it was the one habit that everybody chose to look at. Because, so we looked through the process of, one is how we justify it, and this is how all habits are kept going, by justifications. So if I were to quickly do it with you, generally we all come up with the same things. I've worked hard all day. It's my little bit of pleasure at the end of the day. It keeps me connected. It keeps me grounded. We had a huge list of excuses, but usually what they are is that we kind of know that we should put our phone down and go to sleep. Yeah? But we're addicted to the stimulation. And so what that means is that ultimately it's a form of what the BKs call body consciousness, is that I'm trying to get through the external senses a feeling. It's always a feeling that we're looking for. Actually, we're always looking for ourselves, because deep in ourselves we feel good naturally. It's a quality of our inner self. But the ego tells us that, no, have the substitute instead. So a happiness of scrolling for an hour, it entertains the mind. We feel that okay, this is happiness, this is connecting with the world. But actually, at the end of it, do you really feel like you're spiritually high, or do you feel a little bit drained? It's interesting, isn't it? And also what you're getting is a dopamine high. And this is one of the reasons why we don't put the phone down, because we know what's coming. We know that when I finally put the phone down, I'm going to have that sinking feeling. Oh my God, it's 1 o'clock. I just wasted my time, and now I feel drained, and like all that crap I put in my head, And but when we want our fix, like with any addiction, we come up with justifications and we ignore the consequences. Yeah, and so that's part of the kind of changing habit, is to look at the lies that you feed yourself, make the consequences more obvious, but also look at what you're substituting. I don't think the way to, and it's New Year's Eve, so it's quite near New Year's Eve, so it is a good subject to kind of get into. But for every addiction or habit that we're feeding, what we're really looking for is an experience. But a lot of those experiences that we kind of get from the external world are like substitutes. It's like the difference between morphine and endorphin. Endorphins feel good and they make you more creative, but morphine just keeps you hanging out for more. And that's the case with a lot of these external habits, is we're trying to get that good feeling, but because it's a substitute and it's really just more stimulation than rather internal joy, that it's not satisfying, and so we just keep going until we kind of get exhausted and give up and say, tomorrow I'll start again. Yeah, it's a cycle that a lot of humans all get into, basically. So yes, so that's why we are attached to pleasure through the body. It's just one aspect of our ego. But we also identify with internal factors. My story. This is one that we're all can get very attached to. And it could be the story of this terrible thing that happened to me. And I have this identification of being a victim. And I tell people, and I have a whole story about how my life was ruined. When I was living in Istanbul for many years, and one day a woman came to the meditation center and she was crying, and I was like, what happened? And my husband ran off with a younger woman. I was like, I'm very sorry to hear that. It's never happened in the history of humanity, but you had to be the first. But I said, no, I'm really sorry to hear that. When did this happen? 5 years ago. 5 years. And she's still crying as if it just happened, because in her mind, it's happening again and again. And she's telling the story, and it's expanded to, nobody wants me, my life is ruined, and he's got to, And this is how people keep their suffering alive. So you can identify yourself with your suffering, but you can also identify with the story of in the good old days, when you were the captain of your sports team, and you drop it into every conversation. Everybody's got that uncle, that granddad, who likes to revel about the memories of his, the good old days when he was whatever he was, when his ego was at its peak, when he had so much to be proud of. And so we can attach ourselves not just to our cars and clothes and pleasures, but very much to my way of looking at the world. I know what's really going on in the world. I know the real politics. I know the real perceptions of things, or my memories or experiences, my insights, my hopes for the future, my trauma, this thing that happened to me, or this desire that I'm like stuck in. Now, we all seek to know who we are. This is the deep spiritual, psychological need of everyone, to wake up to who we are. But when we identify with any of these things, they create a sense of insecurity. Now, obviously, if you base your sense of security on a certain number in your bank, which is very easy to do, gets below a certain amount and you start to feel slightly anxious. Yeah, so that's your ego telling you that is your sense of security, and without it, you're in some kind of danger. So it can be a very obvious physical thing that we identify with. But it can also be my opinion, my view about things. Now, have any of you ever had an argument with anyone in your life? I'd be surprised if you hadn't, yeah? Now, when you're in that argument and your voice starts to get raised and you feel that tension and you're like trying to get your point across and they're trying to get their point across, are you calm? Are you logical? Are you clear? No, you get more and more dramatic. It's almost as if you're fighting for your life. And that's literally what your body thinks is going on. Yeah, your heart rate increases, all the blood rushes to your muscles so that you can punch them out or run away, because your body is interpreting that there's some kind of danger here. And what is the danger? The danger is that you have associated yourself, identified with an idea. So you and your idea are now inseparable. That's what the ego does. Yeah, it's not just an idea, it's my idea. And not only that, I'm the clever one who can see everything clearly, and you're the idiot, and I've got to convince you to reaffirm that I am so clever. And you're really as if you're fighting for your life. Yeah? And the other person's also fighting for their life. But it's just an idea. Yeah? And that's just one aspect. We're not just attached to our ideas. Someone insults your child, your looks. They comment, they ignore you, they don't invite you. I think if we had a machine attached to all of us that would measure these little reactions that we have throughout the day, we'd find that we're not so shanti as we might appear. And that's because we've got this sort of insecurity. So we've all got ego, which means we're all identifying with a bunch of external things, and everyone's castle is going to be unique. You might not give a damn about your attractiveness, but you might have a big ego about your education. It's the first thing you drop into the conversation, where you studied and what your degrees were, and where did you go to school? Oh, you only went there. and you're boosting yourself up. So everyone's ego is unique, but everyone has one. And it's this attachment to things that basically are not secure on any level. Anyone can question your perceptions. Anyone can empty your bank account, can scam you. And basically the nature of life on this dimension is that it's unreliable, changeable, unpredictable. Yeah, endings, nothing's guaranteed. You can't even guarantee that your body is going to be there. Not that I'm wishing it on this group, but it happens. You don't know when it's going to happen, that you might have to check out of your biggest attachment, which is to this body. And so this ego creates this feeling of insecurity and fear because this is your castle. This is your whole identity. It's like a sand castle. And at any moment, a tide can come and take it away or take an aspect of away. And that's why whenever you get that feeling of being triggered by someone, someone says something and your reaction is a little bit over the top, it's because you're actually coming from fear. Now, how does this fear manifest in our lives? It's a deep thing, because behind all of these negative behaviors, so we mentioned arguing. So behind arguing for your point of view is a fear, like you're fighting for your idea because it's part of your identity. Yeah? So behind all negative behaviors is an element of fear or insecurity. So this is just a sampling of human negative behaviors. But if we look at any of them, blaming, actually I'll come to blaming later, boasting, casually dropping into the conversation these kind of factors like who you know, where you went to college, what you're good at. You try to make yourself look humble, but you still manage to drop it in to raise people's, view of you. Or lying. Have you ever told a lie? Now, why do we lie? Sometimes people say, you're protecting someone else, yeah, the good old white lies. But if you really look at the emotion behind why we lie, it's some kind of fear. I don't want to tell you what I've just done because you're going to think badly of me. I'm protecting my image, my ego. So a lot of lying is because of this. It's fear of what other people will think, or fear of losing something, some privilege or something that I might have that. So fear. Bossing people around, shouting, comparing myself to others. So underneath all of these, we can say there's some insecurity. So if you were to think of someone who you look up to as a spiritual master in some way, it could be for people in this organization, they imagine maybe Brahma Baba, the founder. But it could also be some Swami, some Christ, Muhammad. If you imagine someone like this, can you imagine them gossiping? Can you imagine them go, oh my God, did you see what those disciples did? Basically, what we're doing when we're gossiping is essentially we're saying, hey, look at what they did. We're so much better than that, aren't we? So we're giving each other a little bit of a boost. Why? Because we're basically insecure. If you don't think that you're really good enough, you will get some pleasure from pointing out to other people the bad side of other people, yeah? And so we don't gossip necessarily because we're bad per se, but because we're insecure. And if you were to look at this whole list and be super honest with yourself, I think we're all guilty of doing these to some degree at some time, yeah? Even if it's a little bit, yeah? Being a bit bossy, being a bit expecting, demanding, disappointed with people, having our favorites, the one who make us feel good about ourselves. We don't avoid people who don't. So just to give you a few more examples. So blame. An example of that would be, it's all your fault that we didn't finish the project on time. Why am I doing this? It's because I fear that people were going to think badly of me, going to question my competence. And so what am I attached to? My reputation, of course. I want people to see me as someone who gets things done. I'm a good leader. And that could be in any context. Blame, it wasn't me who brought up the kids wrong, it's you. You're the one who spoiled them. I'm the perfect mom. Self-limiting. So this is sort of the opposite of someone with an obvious overconfidence. They always want the stage. This would be someone who's like, oh, I'm shy, I'm not smart, I can't go in front of an audience. So again, is often another fear that it has to go 100% perfectly, or I'm going to make a fool of myself. So again, I'm avoiding situations where I'm not going to be 100% competent because I'm holding on to this ego. Shadow and not risking my image. Not taking that opportunity, not going up and talking to a stranger at a networking meeting. Any of these things that we call shy, it's not humility. It's just another face of your ego. I don't want people to think that I'm awkward or weird or anything. And of course, arguing. So I'm right, you're wrong, I'm right, you're just ignorant. And the insecurity behind that could be, well, if someone has a different opinion, maybe I'm wrong. And, or maybe I won't get my own way. So sometimes we're arguing because we really want things to go our way. And again, the attachment to my idea, my intelligence, my way of doing things, my idea of how society should be. And this has become like a huge pandemic in the planet, how people are so attached to their political views or their, how they think the society should be. And you've got left and right and secular and religious. It's this sort of divide and conquer. But why it's happening also is because we get a buzz when we're arguing. We get a buzz from the fight itself and also the trying to prove myself. My ego gets a buzz. And so people get offended. If you have a different opinion to me, we also take offense at that. This is also the ego thinking that the world should be made in my image. I know best. So this ego, it lives in all of us, kind of like a mind virus that's hijacked our consciousness. It's like a substitute for self-realization. Really the effort it takes to realize yourself. This is why, people go to the Himalayas and meditate for 20 years. It's some sort of effort to realize the self. And so what we do instead is we build a self, an ego self, from all of these aspects so that we can feel at least good about ourselves, but we don't, because in a way we've got this big castle around us, but inside, the light of the real self is being ignored. So the ego feeds off everything and anything. It takes everything personally. When your cricket team wins, it's not just the cricket team, is it? You say, we won, yeah? And I've known people who have gone out and got drunk when their football team lost because they take it as a personal defeat. But if their team wins, we won. We're victorious. So I'm taking a big ego boost from it. And so the ego is constantly on the lookout to add more to its castle or to protect it from any kind of loss, any sort of attack. So any comment that you might make about something that's part of my image, whether it's my looks, my beliefs, my country, my group, I'm alert for it, and I'm going to defend it. Now, when you see yourself boasting, arguing, shouting, being demeaning and bossy, and all these very obvious negative behaviors, it's interesting that we still, even though we all do them, I think none of us deep down consider ourselves bad people. You know, you've all done bad things in your life, I'm sure, what you might consider bad. Yeah? Has anybody here got a 100% clean conscience? No, okay. But you still don't consider yourself bad people, yeah? It's kind of interesting. And I think it's because deep down we know that we're good. We know that somehow our soul is good. However, what's happened is this ego hijacks us like a virus. And it literally acts as if we're fighting for our lives. It's a very deep mechanism in the brain too, that basically kind of makes you feel like, I have to have this thing, or I have to win this argument, or I have to control the situation. So in a way, we're almost like victims of our ego. You know, it kind of makes us do stuff, except that we can actually wake up and stop its influence by through self-awareness. So we want to, if we're exhibiting these obvious negative behaviors, understand that it's because you're afraid and you're trying to protect your ego. So essentially it's ego at work, yeah? However, we want to be able to catch how the ego operates in us before we're shouting, before we're arguing. So how can we notice what's going on a more internal level? Is by monitoring how we're feeling. How do I feel? And this is perhaps one of the most important questions of the evening. And that is, do you know the difference between emotions and feelings? Any idea what's the difference? Every language has two words. But in most languages, they're used interchangeably. It's not that clear. Yeah? But give me an idea, yeah. Okay, so emotion, something deep inside us, but feeling is more pretending, showing. Okay, so you show, okay. Okay, so emotions, feelings are more faked and showing emotions deeper. Anybody else? Yeah, sometimes around, yeah. Yeah. Okay, so emotions more external. See how we have completely different ideas about it? Anyone else? Yeah, good. And what is feeling then? Don't worry, we'll get there. Because it has the word feel in it, and that's connected with the senses. All right.
I think emotions are the thoughts, and feelings are the reactions to the thoughts which we feel.
Wow, okay, getting complicated. So feelings are reaction to the thoughts? No, I missed a step there.
Emotions are thoughts.
Emotions are thoughts.
Feelings are reactions to the thoughts we create.
Okay, so feelings are reactions to the thoughts that we create. Okay. See how it's quite confusing. And these are two words that are really important when it comes to our inner life. Yeah? Managing our emotions and our feelings. And we want to feel good, and what's an emotion? So there's a little clue in our language, at least in English we often will say to people, don't make a decision when you're emotional. Yeah? Or we complain to people, oh, you're way too emotional. Calm down. But on the other hand, we'll say to people, before you make a decision, like, what's your feeling about it? You know? Or put more feeling into it. We don't say to people, put more emotion into it. So there is a sense with that don't make a decision when you're emotional, that it's a generally more reactive state. Something happens, I react, I'm emotional, but I'm going to at some point calm down and maybe see things differently. Yeah? And so in a sense, yeah, emotions are more reactive and feelings are coming from, we could say, a deeper place. But this is a definition that I found quite useful, and that for our daily life, is that emotions, I'll walk ourselves through this because it's slightly wordy. It's the disturbance of the energy of my consciousness. So imagine the energy of your consciousness should be positive, calm, good, yeah? But it's now disturbed, like an earthquake. So like a seismograph is measuring the disturbance. So my mind is being disturbed. It's in a state of agitation. And even the word itself, emotion, it's got that movement, energy and movement, motion. What's causing my consciousness is when the object of my attachment, in other words, the thing that my ego is connected to, the thing that I identify with, is somehow being threatened or damaged. And that object could be physical. It could be a thought object. And you're opposing me, and I feel threatened, and now my mind is agitated. I'm defensive, I'm annoyed, I'm, arguing now. That was from one of our teachers, Mike, and I found it quite useful. So he used to use the analogy of, if you've just set off your favorite car, I don't know what that would be, if you had the car of your dreams. But anyway, it's parked out there in the car park, and it's a symbol of your success. It's your favorite object in the whole world, and you want to show everybody in the class, your friends, look, that's my new car. And at one point, you're just looking out to admire it, and you see some kid scratching on the side of the paintwork. Now, sometimes when I say that, I can feel like people flinching, as if I'm scratching them. Because that's what happens. The car does not just exist there in the car park. It exists in your consciousness as a part of your identity, but it also as part of your story. It's my car, I worked hard for that, it gets me around, I can't live without it, it's a symbol of my success, it's the best car, on and on and on. And so an attack on the car feels like literally like attack on you. And as your mind reacts, if you're not conscious of it, you may even go out and I'm not exaggerating, people kill each other for this kind of thing. You hear some stories for even less than that. Yeah, so someone has literally destroyed their life because they felt that you were going to destroy my life. All it is a scratch. And yet, in our consciousness, it's a literally attack on myself, and I lose all sense of perspective. And so that's what emotions do. Now, if we go back to the castle analogy again. So these are examples of different emotions. So anger, essentially the underlying message in anger is get the F away from my castle. Whatever it is. Physically, with your ideas, with whatever it is, but stop it. I'm feeling in danger by your actions. Envy is the sense that I want your castle. Your castle's much nicer than mine, and I feel quite disappointed with mine. Or sadness can be that nostalgia. I used to have such a great castle. I look in the mirror and I feel sad that my castle's deteriorating in front of my eyes. Excitement, now that's an interesting emotion because it's one that people often think is positive. Yeah, being excited, isn't it good to be excited? But if you're actually, especially if you meditate a lot and you're developing that subtle sense of what is these different emotions, you will notice that excitement and fear, very close. And even when you're watching, the excitement of watching a match. If you watch a match and you haven't chosen a team, is there any excitement? It's quite boring, isn't it? It's like you might appreciate the artistry of that was a good shot or whatever, but there's, generally there's no excitement, but as soon as you choose a team, now there's emotion because I want this team to win, yeah? And then when the ball's up the wrong end, I'm like, come on, when it's up the right end, I'm like, yay, and, up and down. And that's why people enjoy it because they're getting a kind of a fix of emotion, of adrenaline, of cortisol, but it is an aspect of ego. Again, if you were like a Zen master watching a game, you wouldn't be like, yeah, no, like, you wouldn't have that excitement. And so a lot of excitement, I'm getting some new bricks for my castle, I'm getting something, you know? And this is again a lie, because your soul has everything, but the ego never has enough. And so when you think that you're getting something, yeah. And it's funny because I gave this session once for some friends, and I was pointing out this excitement about getting new bricks. And the next day I opened my YouTube and I was like, oh my God, 5 new subscribers overnight. And I felt that excitement. And I was laughing at myself saying, okay, you got some new bricks for your castle, huh? Because a few days later you might notice that some people unsubscribe and you're like, what the hell? You know, this is the excitement of the ego. I got something. No, I lost something. Overwhelmed, that feeling of it's all too much, this is also the ego, believing that it has to hold everything together at all time. You know, otherwise something bad's going to happen. In my castle, the emotion of competing, that fear that I'm going to have less, that we need to fight. There's only a few bricks available, and if I don't get there earlier than him, he's going to get them and I'm going to miss out. Insecurity, my castle's not good enough and everybody knows it, so I need to get some more bricks as soon as possible. Or feeling of revenge, different things, but there's that diet, you might have heard about that. When a woman's rejected, she goes on revenge diet. So basically say, look what you're missing out, you know? So it's an attitude of ego. My ego got hurt because I got rejected, so now I want you to feel bad and you should feel like you're missing out. Now, a little example of some emotions. But all these emotions have a chemical component to them. So when you're excited or nervous or worrying or competitive, you're actually secreting these hormones, cortisol, adrenaline. Your brain is firing up. And in a way, it makes you feel alive. This is why we watch soap operas. Because, you know, maybe our life's a bit boring, but we can feed off the drama of other people. It's a cliffhanger. What's going to happen? Is he going to leave her? Is she going to get with the girl? You know, the whole scenario, it creates a feeling of excitement, expectation. Something's happening. So the physiological response that we have to fear is that our heart rate increases, our pupils dilate, we sweat more, our digestion stops, the blood flows to the extremities, getting ready to fight. And this can happen. One day I was in Germany in a kind of public lecture in the audience, but the speaker asked a question directly to someone in the audience. And she didn't answer, but what she must have been wearing some sort of blood pressure machine or something, because what we heard was beep, beep, beep. And everybody started laughing because we really understood what had happened, that she was on the spot and it created high blood pressure and that set off her machine. But imagine that each one of us had such a machine attached to us. You know, and every time we felt those feelings of competitiveness or envy or just, what the heck, they're disrespecting me, I was first. You know, this conversation of our ego all day long, making us react to these external threats. I think our machines would be going beep, 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 a lot. Because the opposite of that, again, is that completely calm mind. Everything's great, nothing bothering me. I'm okay inside. Whatever you think of me doesn't matter. You know, that state of mind is what is a natural state of mind. And this is a kind of a result of the ego. Overstimulation, all of these hormones and chemicals adding to the reaction. And also what will happen is that we will unconsciously create situations to give us more stress. It sounds weird, doesn't it? But if you're a serial procrastinator, so one of the topics I teach in my job is time management. And one of the biggest issues that people have with time management is addiction to adrenaline. And this is why we leave it to the last minute, because we need that boost of, if I don't do it now, there's going to be some terrible consequence. And so I finally get a rush of energy, which means I don't have a long-term plan which I'm calmly motivated to achieve. I need fear to move me. And so a lot of us, without realizing, are actually addicted to drama. You know, we take offense when none is intended. We get annoyed when we could have just let it go. And it's because we kind of get used to a state of agitation. And if not enough drama is going on in your life, you'll find it online to keep that stimulation going. Okay, so that's the emotional world. Again, I know I'm zooming over it, but I hope it's at least giving you an idea. So agitation, it's formed by our many egos and reacts to everything around as if it's a threat. Whereas feeling. Now, this was a definition in the dictionary that a friend found, and it was perception by touch, which is kind of interesting, because if you look at the word feeling, it's also associated with senses. Every language, the word feeling can be alternated with I feel cold, but I also feel happy. Yeah? So when we say we're feeling something, okay, so let's say I'm feeling this bottle. It's slightly warm, it's smooth. So where is the feeling happening? Where is feeling taking place? Okay, we have brain, we have someone tapping their head. Mind, okay. So we have mind, brain, and sometimes people say in the fingers, but of course, if I was asleep and you put this in my hand, I would not feel it. I may not feel it. Or if you hypnotized me, I might believe strongly that this is hot and drop it. Because I've seen that too in a stage show. You know, they can make your mind believe that it's something it's not. But, okay, so the nerves are sending signals to the brain, but even the brain is not feeling. You know, it's still a hunk of meat. It's pretty sophisticated, sending signals around. But ultimately, where are the signals being felt? It's the mind, yeah? So it's the mind that feels. So we say, you know, we can feel with the senses, but we also say the mind is like a sixth sense. You walk into a room and you say, oh, I feel the tenseness in the energy. You know, you're not feeling it with your hands, but your mind is sensing. So the mind is like the sense as well, sixth sense. So when you're on the beach and you say, oh, I feel so peaceful, where is the peace coming from? So remember, perception by touch. So I'm perceiving by touch. So in mind, so the mind feels peaceful. So what is it the mind touching that it's feeling that peace? Where is it coming from? Energy? Okay, this is interesting because people feel like, oh, I'm getting the peace from around because it's a nice place. But actually, all it is, whether it's beach, sunset, beautiful breeze, or right in the middle of a Hyderabad traffic jam, it's actually all just molecules and particles, yeah? Buzzing around, doing their thing. But this is a very strong illusion that we have, that there's peace outside, but there's not. They're just particles. Now, you might feel more peaceful at the beach, possibly because there's less stimulation, you're not distracted, and so in that peaceful place, you're kind of calm, your mind is calmed down. And in that calmness, what is the mind being able to touch? Energy, but which energy? It's the energy of you. You're feeling your own inner energy, yeah? There is literally no peace in a molecule, even if you call it the God molecule, which some people have this, ideas of. So there's literally, and this is really Sounds so simple, but you can really believe that there's cake molecule. Yeah? we really associate the inner qualities with the external things. But actually, yes, what you're really feeling in that moment is yourself, your own energy, your own essence. And and the BKs love this image. I love this image because it really, you are a spark of energy, but that energy is not like a physical energy. It has a feeling, an essence to it. And that is love, peace, bliss, all of those qualities. And that's what, every saint who spent years stepping away from the material world and they've become what you call enlightened, basically that's what they've connected to themselves. And that's what we're doing every day is connecting with that inner energy. So you have, each person is like a record. The old style record is a good image for this. So at your innate core, so this is, we could say, your true identity. It's the one that you always are and will always be. Yeah, your untouchable core essence of love, peace, and bliss, and power, all those qualities that we're looking for, it's actually what we are. But over time, what happens is because we're conditioned to look for these things, not inside ourselves, but outside ourselves, then we develop all these layers of confusion and blame and ego and guilt and all these negative qualities, but they're not essentially us. So it's not an acquired self, but it's acquired layers. So if your child is mud and then come back and all you can see is their eyes, you wouldn't say, get out of here, you're not my child. You'd say, my child is under that mud. I'm going to clean it off. The mud is not the child. It's very obvious. So in a sense, all of these negative qualities, they're not us. Yeah, they're acquired programming that is not true to ourselves. And we even know it. When we behave badly, don't we say it like that? It wasn't me. I wasn't acting like myself. Because we essentially know that our real self is good. Now, on the old style record players, you have this ability to lift up the needle and place it down. And this is the power of choice that we all have in every single moment. That we can go with the emotion, keep addicted to that anger, keep it going, keep the negative thoughts going, and feed off it, because it is like an addiction. Or we can recognize what's going on, that I'm just feeding this way of thinking, and I can lift it up and I can place it down in the core, place it down in the place of peace. Now, a good analogy for this, I'll get to in a moment. This is a little test to see whether you've understood the difference between emotions and feelings. Yeah? So, is love emotion true love? Is that an emotion or a feeling? Feeling. Yeah? Now, because, yes, feeling is something that it's my nature, and I can choose to access it at any moment. What people often associate love with? That is like investment banking. Yeah, so you look around for a good investment, yeah, and then you pour all your time, energy, and money into that investment, but you expect a good return. Yeah? And what happens if you don't get a good return, or if they give all your money to someone else? That love quickly turns to hate. I'm going to close the bank down, and and this is what most murders take place between people who once said, "I love you." But what they really meant was you. Again, this is the biggest trick of the ego, to mistake this kind of thing for love, this drama. You know, I can't, if someone says, I can't live without you, dear, warning signs, yeah? You're happy, you know, that's what people are doing. They get someone because they think that's going to be my new fix, my new source of good feelings. But then it leads to dependency, to attachments. And this, again, is not just romantic attachments. It can be parents and kids, you know. Why don't you visit me every night? I looked after you for so many years and you don't care. And all dramas and trying to get from each other what we think we need instead of just radiating love, because that's what we are. And that's why I put this picture up, because someone who knows that they're love will never say, I need love. They know their love, and then naturally just sharing it around. And, you know, that doesn't mean flirting with the shopkeeper. Sharing love around, you know, sharing knowledge, uplifting people, smiling, patting a dog, helping someone learn something, listening, empathy. You know, love has so many different beautiful qualities to be expressed that you can literally live your whole day in love without anybody around. Desire is something that people also mistake for love. You know, if saying, I fell in love at first sight. No, you didn't. You just liked the way they looked. And that sort of chemical cocktail will only last 6 months. And then you'll say, oh, I fell out of love. I don't know what happened. I'm disappointed. No, it's impossible to sustain that level of emotion. It's exhausting. Yeah? But that excitement, sometimes people are so addicted to it that they'll go, okay, that didn't work. I'll go and find someone else to chase, because they're chasing not the person, they're chasing the artificial high of that chemical cocktail that people mistake for love. Another thing people mistake for love is identifying with somebody. So I'm not in love with you, fashion, or your appearance. And this is where the saying trophy wife, isn't it? People congratulate, oh, you got a beautiful girl, yeah? Or her. So it's as if your ego gains something through connection with that person. And often we get confused and we mistake that we love the person, but we're actually loving all the extra bricks that they're adding to my castle. And then when those bricks don't work, they lose their appearance or job or whatever happens, then what happens to my love? You know, maybe we mature and we actually learn to have real love, but a lot of the time people get very disappointed in love because it was an investment that was never going to work. What about joy? Again, true joy has to be a feeling. So I don't is happy because he's noticed that dad's wearing a Rolex and he's like, yes, I'm in a rich family. You know, children are just joyful from within because they haven't yet got all those layers on them. Yeah, so it's like they're close to who they are. But as we get older, what happens? We begin to associate joy with acquisition. You know, I got something. You know, I'm so happy. I found the perfect dress. I got a new phone. How long does that happiness last in your experience? Not long, huh? And then you notice the new ones come out. Just when I got the latest model. Or we very commonly associate joy with consumption and pleasure. So I'm binging on my favorite Netflix, and we use that word, binging. Binging on Netflix with my favorite food. Oh, this is bliss. Or is it? Yeah, and you know that feeling when the show's over and your ice cream's finished and now you feel like, what the hell, I just wasted half an evening or half a weekend, you know, and it's like a false promise. It's like bait, you know, and it keeps the mind occupied away from its worries, but deep not joy. Yeah, we know that it's fleeting and it leaves us feeling a bit empty. The other for joy experience. And this is I've had so many girls in my life, or I've been to all these different countries, but even I had the best meditation. We can get very attached to experiences instead of self-realization. Or the last kind of shallowest joy is just relief. Oh, I'm so happy it's the weekend. I'm happy that the suffering is over. So it's not just the end of pain, but at least I'm not in pain anymore. Yeah, and so this is the kind of very shallow joy, very shallow love that everybody's addicted to. And that's a good analogy for what's going on. Emotion, the excitement, the fear, the drama, it's like junk food. Yeah? And you eat junk food for a while, and then someone says, here, have the salad. What do you think? What do you feel? Ugh. So bland, it's got no taste, yeah? And you just want more sugar, you want the salt. However, if you've been eating really healthy for a while and someone says, here, have a Coke, you feel like, oh my God, it's so sweet. It's too much, it's artificial, it doesn't taste good. And so this, I think, really summarizes the difference between our addiction and a state of pure being. Now, if you've been addicted to emotions like we all have, the highs and the lows, the ups and the downs, the stimulation, the pleasure, this is why you resist meditating. You know, every seminar, but if we announce come for 2 hours, the numbers go right down. Because what is it? It's like a fear, like, oh my God, it's so boring, so dry, I don't know what to do, like, you know, give me Netflix any day. And so meditate for hours in the beginning. But what we have to do is get a taste. Just like if you're addicted to junk food, you know, have a with it. You know, increase the salad. You might begin to realize it's actually not that bad. It actually tastes quite nice. You know, it's like you've got to change your taste buds. And so we've got to kind of get over, well, first is that most of the time your mind is in a state of agitation. Like it's a big realization to even notice that you're not calm, that you are reacting to a lot of stuff. And then begin to get a little taste for moments of what it feels like to just be calm. Or just feel the energy from inside. I mean, this is why it's good to take a meditation course, because it can really help you, especially in the beginning, like guided meditations. You know, when someone kind of helps you to calm down and start to feel that energy. But just taste for it. You don't have to go like cold turkey on every bad habit you've got. But you have to like, or at least recognizing that this is really false. It's not what you really want. You know, that your soul really does want to feel the depth of bliss. And how the contrast between bliss and pleasure, you know, what a difference that is. And even beginning to see it, it means you're making some progress. You know, if you can begin to taste the difference between that food, because you'll start that food more often. And then you'll start to realize just how horrible that food is. You know, and because you don't want it. So if you realize that emotions are actually not that great, that's the show. That adrenaline rush from the argument, you begin to go, actually, this feels like, bleh. You know, then you'll start to calm down and go, actually, I prefer to feel calm. I'm going to let this issue go. So I'm going to leave you with an analogy, I think is a good one, and then I'll do a little visualization related to it. But along in your storm, yeah, a big fight with your spouse, something's gone wrong, somebody's offended you, whatever. This big storm has come. Now, this story, which I'm going to relate to you from another one of our teachers years ago, and I loved it. The story was out in the middle of the ocean, it was a Norwegian freight ship or something. But he found out, radioed, that there was a big hurricane coming. And he had to save his ship and his people and his, whatever it was, cargo. And so what do you think he would do? What would you do if that was you? You're out in the middle of the ocean, not close to land, and you get a warning that this massive hurricane's coming. What are you going to do to save the situation? Sail away. That's, yeah, ideally to sail away from it. Sometimes people say just close the hatches and pray to God. But a lot of the time the answer comes like, just try to get away from it. Yeah? But actually what he did is he turned the boat around and he went straight into the storm. Right towards the storm. Why would he do something like that? Yeah, I think there's something in, I mean, I don't know enough about nautical survival, but I'm guessing that if he faces it, he might have a bit more control than being hit from the back, maybe. But the main reason that he headed towards the storm was that he knew that the secret of a storm, a hurricane, is, and of course in here where it's a hurricane in our brain and our mind, but he knew that every hurricane has an eye, yeah, eye of the storm. And in this situation, the eye of the storm was 22 kilometers of empty space. So all he had to do was keep the ship afloat long enough that he reached the eye of the storm and then moved with the eye until he reached the land, and then he got off. Now, surviving emotions, what happens when most of us are emotionally disturbed is that we want to run away from it. And how do we run away from our emotions? We run to the fridge, we run to the phone, we run to the cigarettes, we run to whatever it is that takes your mind away, and yet the storm is still going. Yeah? So actually what we need is to do what we really resist, is actually just sitting with it. Yeah? And this is the chance to learn how to do this thing, turn within. When you most want to turn within your fix, you're training yourself to go within. And it's because you've understood that what is within is actually what you're looking for. Because when you're running out and you're upset, you're looking for relief. But usually you run to something that actually creates more problems. Whereas the peace that you're really looking for is inside. Now we all know this. If you've been here before, you've probably heard it all the time. Peace is within. But it's true. And it will only remain theory unless you actually start to do it. And every single day you've got, I think, hundreds of opportunities to do it. Yeah. Anytime that you feel that emotion, reaction, or going towards your addiction, that's a moment to say, hey, that's right. There's an eye of a storm here. I can go within and learn to connect with that peace. Now, I'm getting signals from here, but I'd like to just do a visualization exercise, and then we'll wrap up. Yeah? Okay, so the aim of this exercise is a visualization, and it's just to kind of reinforce this concept of there can be all hell breaking loose outside, but we can still connect to that place of peace, no matter what's going on. And so for this exercise, I put this image up. Do you mind taking the main lights down a little bit, if that's possible? So you can start by looking at the picture, but you can close your eyes for this because it's a visualization. And I want you to imagine that you're walking in the desert and up those sand hills. And as you get to the top of the sand dune, you look into the distance and you can see it stretched out for miles and miles. But you notice that there's a large building ahead in the distance. And you're wondering if it's a mirage, but you head over to see what it is. You go down the sand hill, and eventually you come under the shadow of the building. So it's definitely real. You go through the front doors into the lobby of this building, and there's no one around. It's empty. And so you go to the lift to get in, and you push the button and go up to the very top floor. And as you step out of the lift, you find yourself in a large open plan space. This is the whole top floor of this tall building. And there's no furniture, just a chair by the window. And the walls are going all the way around the building. And you know, you've been outside in that hot desert, and so the room is beautifully air conditioned. And that seat's super comfy. And the view is amazing. You can see the blue sky and the desert stretched for miles and miles into the distance. And so you just relax. Take a deep breath. Let all the stress of the walking and the heat go. And it's as if time just disappears. But then you notice that the sky is becoming dark. But it's not nighttime. And what's happened is huge, dark storm clouds have rolled in and have completely covered up the sun. And then a strong wind begins to blow all around the outside of the building. And you can see lightning behind these dark clouds. You can hear the rumbling of thunder. And eventually rain begins and starts hitting the glass. And there you are, up in the middle of the sky, in the middle of a huge storm. But you can see that the glass is very thick. Like there's a muffled sound. It feels a little bit at a distance. And the room temperature remains very comfortable, your seat's very comfortable. And so you have zero fear. And in fact, you're completely enjoying the visual display all around, like a 360 cinema. Amazing shapes of clouds and lightning and changing weather. It's just a spectacle for you. From your place of safety, comfort, no danger, just enjoyment. Until eventually you notice that the rain is softened and the clouds begin to drift away and you can see a little bit of blue sky and eventually the sun peeking through until at last the whole sky is clear once again, blue and sun shining. Now I want you to imagine that your own body is just like that tall building. And at the top of this building, there's 2 windows. These are your eyes. And at the moment, the curtains are closed. And behind your eyes, there's a room. The room of your mind. And sometimes Outside, the sun is shining, blue skies, rainbows. But other times, there's huge storms going on. Problems, challenging people, potential losses, chaos, one after another. Clouds and storms keep coming. And do not just remain outside, but they come in through your eyes, into your mind, and now there's a storm inside your mind. And your mind feels very disturbed, very anxious, very worried, and it's like a storm, like a wind going round and around, and the thoughts won't stop, and you're feeling really disturbed. But then you remember that there was an eye, the eye of the storm. And in this room, the eye of the storm is the eye. But we can imagine it to be like a chair, just like the one in the room. And in this case, it's like the throne of your soul, the place of the true I, a place that's not even a place. It's the awareness that I am untouchable, because I am pure peace. I don't need peace. I can't get peace. I don't need the storm to finish to have peace, because I am peace. I can't gain it or lose it because it's what I am. I am peace. And when I sit on this throne of awareness of who I am, it's not just peace. I feel powerful. I feel clear. I feel at peace and full of love, full of good energy. And as I remember who I am, I look at that storm that was going on in the mind, and I see that it's beginning to drift away, to calm down. There's no need to think so much. Nothing's going wrong. I am okay. And from this place of power, I look out through the eyes at the same world that's always there, but I am no longer threatened. I know that I am more powerful than any storm. And in fact, I realize that I can actually influence what's going on with my energy of peace. And from that place of peace, if I need to do something or say something, it will naturally come. Or if I just need to accept that the storm will come and go, that's also fine. And so now I open my eyes again, and I'm no longer in that building. I'm back in Shanti Sarovar, in this body with a name like that building, but I can still sense that that place of peace is always there. And the key is not to just try and get there when it's a storm going on, but to connect and sit in that place of peace throughout the day, from time to time. And that reinforces the awareness that it's who I am. So thank you, and I hope that that's something that will help you in your new year. As a and I think we need to stop making resolutions. I'm going to stop doing this. I'm going to start doing that. I think for me, it's like a daily thing. No feeling, and have mercy on yourself by learning to let go of the emotions and learn how beautiful it is to feel the feelings of the soul. And if you haven't done a meditation course, I highly recommend. This place has got many good teachers to come and do that. So Om Shanti, thank you and good night.
Thank you so much, sister. So once again, we will give a huge round of applause to the sister for wonderful power of visualization. Are you feeling transformative? So within a couple of seconds, if you are feeling that level of transformation, so imagine if you practice it regularly, what a transformation can come, right? So we are transitioning in a new year. So on this note, we have another wonderful surprise for you. So we have a song on the transformation. So I'll welcome the children's with a new transformation song when you're going from 2024 to 2025. So we will welcome the new year with a round of applause.
ओम शांति। सो हम सब रेडी हैं नए साल का वेलकम करने के लिए। यू ऑल आर रेडी? सो उतना ही अच्छा उमंग, उत्साह और कुछ नवीनता अपने अंदर लाएंगे। इस गीत को भी एंजॉय करेंगे और परमात्मा को भी अपने मन से क्या हमें पुराने साल में विदाई देनी है और नए साल में क्या नया लाना है, वो हम परमात्मा से भी कहेंगे। सो बच्चों के लिए एक बार ज़ोरदार ताली हो जाए। उन्होंने सिर्फ 5-10 मिनट में ही थोड़ा प्रिपेयर किया है, तो उनके अंदर भी बहुत अच्छा उमंग है इस गीत के लिए। आप सब भी तालियों से साथ में मदद कर सकते हैं। ओम शांति। यही है दिल की दुआ हो सबका भला, ये दौर बदलना चाहिए। दुख दर्द का है जो सिलसिला, अब और न चलना चाहिए। ये दौर बदलना चाहिए, ये दौर बदलना चाहिए, ये दौर बदलना चाहिए, ये दौर बदलना चाहिए। Let's clap for them. ये क्या हुआ, कैसे हुआ, ये ख्याल अब ना कीजिए। खुद को बदल आगे बढ़ें, अब ना नसीहत दीजिए। ये सब बदलने के लिए खुद को बदलना चाहिए। ये दौर बदलना चाहिए, ये दौर बदलना चाहिए। उम्मीदों का दिया जला, चाह में देने खुदा का वास्ता, ये दौर बदलना चाहिए। आप भी गा सकते हैं। बदलना चाहिए ये दौर, बदलना चाहिए। दिल को यकीन है एक दिन ये समा बदलेगा ज़रूर, ये रातें गुजरेगी ज़रूर, सूरज भी निकलेगा ज़रूर। सब वक्त से ही होना है, धीरज तो धरना चाहिए। ये दौर बदलना चाहिए, ये दौर बदलना चाहिए, ये दौर बदलना चाहिए, ये दौर बदलना चाहिए। Thank you. Thank you to all the kids of Bal Vrindavanam. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Again, with a huge round of applause, we will thank Sister Shakshi and all the children. Please come up the stage, and I also request Sister Gillian Savas, please come on the stage to have a picture with the children.
यही है दिल की दुआ हो सबका भला, ये दौर बदलना चाहिए। दुख दर्द का है जो सिलसिला, अब और न चलना चाहिए। ये दौर बदलना चाहिए, ये दौर बदलना चाहिए।
New Year. Happy New Year. This depicts that we have to again realize the kid which is inside us. A lot of children. Okay, thank you. Thank you so much. So as we come close to the beautiful evening, we are taking away a lot of insights from today's session. Can you give me some keywords? What did you learn today? Feelings, emotions, difference between them. Ego. Have you identified your ego? Different aspects of it. And then how to deal with it. So you're ready for the transformation? So those a few couple of announcements. These beautiful insights by the sister, I am also taking away home, and I really hope that you will also go back home and implement this.